Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty grim. A weapon designed not just to win a battle, but engineered to keep killing long after the fighting stops.
You're talking about cluster bombs.
Exactly. Cluster bombs, they're notorious, often called the most controversial weapons on Earth. And the real horror isn't just during the conflict.
No, it's the decades after. It's how they contaminate the land, the ground people live on. It's a legacy of instability and death.
That's it, precisely.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to really get into the hidden truths behind cluster bombs. We need to trace their, frankly, horrifying history. Look at the devastating long-term impact.
And crucially, understand why these weapons, which are banned by so many countries, are actually resurfacing. We're seeing reports from the Iran-Israel conflict in June 2025.
Yeah, it's a very sobering development. And to really get what that means, we need the full picture, the context.
Exactly. So our deep dive into the source material, it's going to show you what makes these the, quote, silent killers of modern warfare.
A label that seems tragically accurate.
It really is. You'll see how they evolved, how they spread globally, and how that's created this persistent, deadly problem.
Okay, so to really grasp this horror, we have to go back to their origins, World War II, right?
That's where it starts, yes. A grim milestone, you could say.
What's kind of striking is how fast the idea spread.
It really is. Germany's butterfly bombs. They were some of the first, small explosives, but designed not just for military targets.
Designed to kill indiscriminately. Civilians.
Yes, used devastatingly in Britain, in Russia. And it wasn't long, before the Soviet Union saw this and, well, copied the design.
Which just kicked off this rapid, chilling evolution of the weapon.
Mm-hmm. And that evolution just kept going, leading to what you called a persistent nightmare.
Yeah, think about Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. The sheer scale is hard to comprehend.
It is. The U.S. dropped millions of cluster bombs there. Millions, effectively turning huge areas into, well, permanent minefields.
And the numbers behind that, there's one stat that's just shocking. Up to 30% of the smaller bomblets, they just didn't explode on impact.
Right. And that failure rate, it's not just a glitch. It's almost a built-in feature that guarantees this danger continues long after the war is supposed to be over.
So decades later.
Decades later, those unexploded bomblets, duds, essentially they're still killing people.
Mm-hmm.
Farmers, kids playing, ordinary civilians. It really shows how this weapon just refuses to end when the war does.
And tragically, it's not like that lesson was learned. That same terrifying pattern, it just repeated.
It did. Our research points to Iraq, Afghanistan, Kosovo.
All places where NATO, the U.S., Russia used them again.
That's right. Deploying cluster bombs, leaving behind the same hidden killers.
And again, civilians dying years later, stepping on them.
Exactly. Which makes you ask, why? Why keep using them, knowing the cost?
Well, the source material offers a chilling explanation.
It does. It describes them as cheap, terrifying, and highly effective at spreading fear.
Spreading fear. So the fear itself is part of the strategy, a long-term goal.
It seems that way. It's a deliberate, lasting psychological impact.
We saw that impact, that devastation, really starkly in the 2006 Lebanon War.
Oh, absolutely. Israel dropped an estimated 4.6 million cluster submunitions on southern Lebanon then.
4.6 million.
Wow.
And the failure rate.
Staggering. Our sources say about 1 million failed to explode. 1 million.
Unbelievable.
And the human cost. The documents detail the heartbreaking impact, especially on children. They'd mistake these little, sometimes brightly colored bomblets for toys.
Oh,
yeah. And they'd lose arms, legs, their lives. It's just a brutal example of how indiscriminate and cruel these weapons are long term.
Which brings us right up to the present day. This controversial return we mentioned.
Yes, the grim reality in the Iran-Israel conflict, June 2025, reports confirming Iran using cluster munitions and missile strikes on Israel.
Scattering these unexploded killer civilian areas, hospitals, schools mentioned.
Exactly. And what's really telling, according to our sources, is the stated purpose now.
What are they saying?
The sources explain it's about creating fear, panic, lasting destruction. The goal isn't just winning battles today.
It's about making sure the battlefield stays deadly. For generations.
Precisely. A sustained psychological and physical wound on the population long after any ceasefire.
So here we are, watching this happen again, despite everything we know. Which leads to that big question. Global condemnation versus, well, reality.
Geopolitical reality, yeah. Over 100 countries have banned these things under international law. That's significant. But, crucially, some very powerful nations refuse to sign the ban. Our research points to Iran, Israel, Russia, the USA, and China.
They haven't signed on. Why? What's the justification?
The rationale given, according to the source material, is military necessity. They argue these weapons are essential, indispensable even, for certain military objectives.
Even if it means ignoring treaties, war ethics, human rights.
That seems to be the calculation presented. Prioritizing perceived battlefield needs over those humanitarian concerns, it's stark.
It really brings us back to what you said earlier. The real horror isn't just the war itself.
No, it's the decades that follow. That's perhaps the most critical point to take away from all this.
The fighting stops eventually, the soldiers go home.
But the bombs stay, killing silently, potentially forever.
We've seen it in Vietnam, Iraq, Lebanon.
And now the fear is we'll see it in Israel too. This pattern of silent, unseen killing just continues. It's a testament to a weapon that fundamentally outlives the conflict it was part of.
So, wrapping up, it's this paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
A weapon condemned by most of the world, banned internationally.
Yet still held on to, still used by major powers because of this claim of military necessity.
And the cost, as we've seen, the real human and environmental cost, just stretches on and on, far beyond the war zone.
Yeah, it's borne by ordinary people generations later, affecting their safety, their ability to farm their land, their peace of mind, just living day to day.
It leaves you with a pretty heavy thought, really. The long-term impact, the
Given
global
everything we
consensus
know,
against them. What does the continued use of cluster bombs actually tell us about the ethics, maybe the priorities, of modern warfare today?
That's the question to ponder, isn't it? Long after this deep dive is over.